Additionally,
supposed, actually, might, progress, division, multiples, accuracy, repeatedly, questions, successful, gasoline, atmosphere, temperature, hourly, maps, practice, widely,
examination,
language, styles, customer, collection, processing, application, accessible, destination, duties, financial, advisory,
benefits,
anxious, deformed, disappointment, fractured,
robust,
sales, destruction, appropriate, lucky,
majority,
major, minority, Triggers. Multicultural. Masterpiece. Gap. Yield. Exercise.
Enormous.
Complicated. Book. Assessing. Physician.
Detect it.
Laboriously. Laboratory. Inaccurate. Optionally. Receptionist.
In animals, a movement is coordinated by a cluster of neurons in the spinal cord called the central contract patterns generator, CPG. This produces signals that drive muscles to contract rhythmically in a way that produces running or walking, depending on the pattern of pulses. A simple signal from the brain instructs the CPG to switch between different modes, such as going from a standstill to walking.
It is axiomatic that the best medium for teaching a child is his mother tongue. Psychologically, it is the system of meaningful signs that in his mind works automatically for expression and understanding. Sociologically, it is a means of identification among the members of the community to which he belongs. Educationally, he learns more quickly through it than through an unfamiliar linguistic medium.
Dogs aren't just man's best friend. Previous studies have shown that kids with dogs are less likely to develop asthma. Now a new study may show how, if results from mice apply to us. The work was presented at a meeting of the American Society for Microbiology. The study tests what's called the hygiene hypothesis. The idea is that extreme cleanliness may actually promote disease later on. Researchers collected dust from homes that had a dog. They fed that house dust to mice. They then infected the mice with a common childhood infection called respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV.
As with all human behavior, there are numerous reasons for it. But often it's caused by someone who feels the need to show their superiority over someone else, in order to feel that they aren't at the lowest level in hierarchy or a group of people. In some cases, one person simply dislikes the other, on the basis that the personality of one is in some way incompatible with that of the other person.
For all his fame and celebration, William Shakespeare remains a mysterious figure with regards to personal history. There are just two primary sources for information on the bard: his works, and various legal and church documents that have survived from Elizabethan times. Naturally, there are many gaps in this body of information, which tells us little about Shakespeare the man.
Now that the story's been scratched, it is only part of contingency planning. But it was a symptom of the dramatic turn of events in South Australia, and it flushed out other remarks from water academics and people like Tim Flannery, indicating that things were really much worse than had been foreshadowed, even earlier this year. So is Adelaide, let alone some whole regions of South Australia, in serious bother. Considering that the vast amount of its drinking water comes from the beleaguered Murray, something many of us outside the state may not have quite realized. Is their predicament something we have to face up to as a nation?
Every child deserves the right to an education without prejudice. Nonetheless, the question is whether bilingual education provides children with an equitable education. Are minority students taught as effectively as their counterparts in English-only classrooms? It is crucial to determine if bilingual school students receive the same curricular content as other students, as this significantly impacts their performance. There has been some criticism from some researchers on the benefits of bilingual education. Baker noted that proficiency in one language improves on one side of a scale, and proficiency in the other language declines on the opposite side. Bilingual students with proficiency in English struggled with English language instructions, literacy, and school performance in the regular classroom. Those of you who've never heard the term Neo-Latin may be forgiven for thinking it's a new South American dance craze. If you're puzzled when I tell you it has something to do with the language of Romans, take heart. Over the years, many classes who have confessed they're not really sure what it is either. Some have assumed that they're so-called Late Latin, written at the end of the Roman Empire. The effect of the first difference is, on the one hand, to refine and enlarge the public views, by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens, whose wisdom may best discern the true interests of their country, and whose patriotism and love of justice will be least likely to sacrifice it to temporary or partial considerations. Under such a regulation, it may well happen that the public voice pronounced by the representatives of the people will be more consonant to the public good than if pronounced by the people themselves, convened for the purpose.
For all his fame and celebration, William Shakespeare remains a mysterious figure with regards to personal history. There are just two primary sources for information on the bard: his works, and various legal and church documents that have survived from Elizabethan times. Naturally, there are many gaps in this body of information, which tells us little about Shakespeare the man.
Financial markets swung wildly yesterday in the frenzied trading market by further selling of equities and fears about an unraveling of the global carry trade at the same time. Trading in the US and European credit markets were exceptionally heavy for a third consecutive day. London trading was marked by particularly wild swings in the prices of credit derivatives, used to insure investors against corporate defaults. I'm going to argue that the tremendous increases in productivity that we associate with the Industrial Revolution originate not so much from changes in science or technology or new inventions, where England was far from unique, as from changes in attitudes towards morality, towards what constitutes the good. Attitudes towards property, which became England individuals long before it did on the continent. Attitudes toward the proper role of government. And together, these attitudes constitute much of what the Luddites were protesting against.
The chapter now proceeds to consider those classroom contexts where the home language of students is developed. We first consider the importance of and issues related to home language development in schools. Next, we discuss the challenges bilingual students may face in monolingual schools, and ways such schools can still provide scaffolding and bilingual supports. We then turn to the specific context of bilingual immersion and the features and strategies used in these classrooms. Before we conclude, we consider a range of key topics for effective bilingual schools in general.
Well, in 2004 we integrated ticketing in southeast Queensland, so we introduced a paper ticket that allowed you to travel across all the three modes in southeast Queensland. So bus, train and ferry, and the second stage of integrated ticketing is the introduction of a smart card, and the smart card will enable people to store value, so to put value on the card, and then to use the card for traveling around the system.
He learnt a lot about technique, particularly narrative voice. You will develop an understanding of essential novel writing techniques.
This module is to identify and analyze your ideas. During the examination, electronic devices must be left to the supervisors. Organizational failure is considered from various perspectives in academic literature.
A few journalism students need to read the school newspaper. Cells are the basic building blocks of all animals and plants.
After the introduction, you can start elaborating on the topic.
We have curated a complete guide on how to write an essay.
It is our moral duty to facilitate the perfect learning environment for our students.
There is often a tremendous amount of personal satisfaction.
They can also be distinguished between private and public companies.